Hey guys, good afternoon. This is Charles, Exodus Logistics Learning Center, America's #1 dispatcher and freight broker training. Today is Saturday, the 14th of December, 2024. This is our Saturday edition in the second week of December of our Dispatcher 101 training for beginners. I got a few people in here. How are you doing?
Hey Charles, I'm good.
Any questions for me? I want to do some Q&A. What's going on? Where are you in your, I guess, process of dispatching? I always ask that question, but I really want to know. So,
Cold calling, looking for carriers.
cold calling, looking for carriers. What are you saying when you I don't want to put you on the spot, but uh
Just using the basic script that we have. I took someone that you have in this class. She offered uh,
Chasa.
yes, I did her cold calling Zoom call. So just taking notes from things like that and using your script.
And how is that working? I mean, have you
It's going slow. Just trying to utilize all of the resources to get the carriers.
so you're trying to put together your like your system, like a
Yes,
process.
yes.
So tell me specifically, without I guess telling me, but um what are you actually saying to the carriers? Like, let's say if I was a carrier and you would have called me and I'd have picked the phone up, what are some things you would say? I just want to
Uh,
hear.
letting them know that I dispatch other carriers in their area. Um, asking them, are they looking for a dispatcher? Are they under load or under overload? Questions like that.
Under a load or looking for a load.
Yes.
Okay. Now what would happen if I was to say, yeah, I'm looking for something. What do you got?
Well, I haven't actually got that far yet, but I would make something up on the spot. I would let them know. I would ask them where are they looking to travel to? Are they
There you
trying to
go.
stay
There you go.
interstate? Yeah, I'm a little rusty, but I mean, I'm still trying to come up with the flow. So just off the top of my head, I would ask them where they would like to travel to, whether they would like to come home at night, what's their rate, things like that. I would go down that list.
Okay, so let's do that. That's a good. So I tried to catch you off guard, but your your spider senses kicked in, and you're like, okay, this is what I should say, right?
Yeah.
So,
And I'm not even prepared. Like I literally, I'm bringing groceries in, and I just signed in, and I just started talking just to say hey. So it's
oops.
like off the top of my head.
So, and this is for everybody else too. I mean, so if you're on the phone doing cold calls and you like all day you're getting shot down by carriers, man, I got a dispatcher, or I'm not interested, or I'm no longer in trucking, or whatever, whatever the type of no that you receive, right? Uh, then, but all of a sudden, bing, you got one. They say,
I'm gonna put
oh
you on mute
yeah,
just so I can put my things away. I'm still listening.
yeah. Then they'll say, yeah, I need a dispatcher. You're like, uh-oh. What do I say then? What do I say? What do you say when a carrier says they looking for a dispatcher? Well, what are some of the questions you might? Well, I won't ask you. I'll just say it like right. So when the carrier says they need a dispatcher, one of the first things you should ask them is, um, what is their equipment type? Right? What is your equipment type? Because you want to nip that in the bud as far as whether or not you're going to decide if you want to dispatch for a um, specialty equipment type carrier or not, right? You want to decide that. So, what is their equipment type? And they'll say dry van, flatbed, or reefer, and things like that. So, Angelia, you unmuted yourself. You had a question?
Oh no, I don't have a question. I was getting ready to be like, okay, where they want to run, what lane they like to be in. They like to be on the East Coast, West Coast, the
Right.
South. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for helping me. That's right. So let's okay, before we get into the lane and the thing, let's keep the equipment type category going a little bit too, because there's some things about the equipment type that you want to ask them too. Like, okay, so what's your equipment type? They'll answer that. So within the equipment type, you may
Power
want to
only.
ask, well, the weight, what is your weight requirements? What are your weight limits with the equipment type? Right?
Oh,
Is it
I don't.
30,000 pounds, 40,000 pounds, things like that? Because the equipment type is either going to be uh dry van, flatbed, or reefer, right, for the three major equipment types, or it's going to be the specialty equipment types, which are, like you said, the power only, the sprinter van, cargo van, box trucks, and hot shots, right? Now, I prefer you to go this route with the equipment types so that you'll make your life a whole lot easier. And then the weight limitations for those three equipment types, of course, you know what they are because we have them in our portal, what the weight limitations are for the dry vans. And what I mean by weight limitations, I mean the trailer, what's the weight on the trailer, not the total gross weight, but the weight of the trailer. So for the dry van, it's 45,000 pounds. For the flatbed, because you got two different types of flatbeds, the 48 and the 53-foot flatbeds, then you got between 46 to 48,000 pounds. And in the reefer, you got up to about 44,000 pounds because you have to compensate for that reefer unit on the front of the trailer. So those are things that you would have that knowledge in the back of your head. And then the specialty. Now, if you decide to go the specialty route, you're going to have even other questions you have, depending on which ones you choose: box trucks, power only, hot shots. But as a new dispatcher, if you get a driver that says, I'm looking for a dispatcher, and they're one of the three major equipment types, you just made your life a little bit easier than you would if they were one of the specialties. Okay. So under equipment type, you got that. Now, next, Angelia said something about where they want to run, the lanes, what lanes they want to run in. Do they want to run in the Midwest? Do they want to run in the Southeast? Do they want to run in the Northeast? Or do they want to run in the Southwest? Now, these are not lanes, these are more like regions or zones that we refer to in our trainings, right? The uh, the lanes are from pickup to delivery, from pickup at the shipper to delivery at the receiver, right? So from consignor to consignee. Okay. But you still would ask those types of questions, and you would base it on, tie it into the equipment type. Certain equipment types run better in certain regions or certain lanes or certain zones. So you'll get familiar with that. And this is why you're having the conversation with the potential carrier that you're trying to dispatch for. So um, another main thing you would ask them is what is their what is their RPM or CPM? What does that mean? What is RPM or CPM? Anyone know what that is? What's the RPM or the CPM that they're if I'm a driver and I say yeah, I'm interested in a dispatcher, you want to ask me what is your RPM or your CPM? What is your rate per mile or your cents per mile? In other words, how much you're looking to make? What are you looking to gross per week? You can even break it down like that. How much do you want me to try to gross you per week? And again, depending on the equipment type, those numbers of well, depending on the equipment type and where that equipment type is running, will determine the gross per week. So this ties into this, which ties into that. Okay. So the equipment type, the lane is going in or running in frequently determines what they gross per week and the loads and things like that. So does everybody understand that part right there? Got this part? Any questions about this part? Because I'm gonna erase it. That's why I'm asking. No questions about that part. All right, going once, going twice. So what is your equipment type? What are the lanes? And what are you looking to make per week? And then other things are, well, how long do you want to run? Like how often or how far? Like, do you want to be out there a week at a time, 3 weeks at a time? What is your home time? How often do you want to be home? Because you're asking these carrier profile type questions because you are kind of like lining up how you're going to find loads for them. So how long do you want to run? Right? How long? How long do you want to do OTR? How long do you want to be over the road? OTR. Yeah. And you're asking these questions. Jennifer said any of those questions on the any of those questions on the profile form. So you're asking them in a conversational way, but you're going to send them the carrier profile at some point once they decide to say, hey, yeah, I want to work with you. Send me what you need to send me, and I'll go ahead and fill it out, and we'll have an agreement together, and then you can start finding loads for me. And I'm looking to start the following week, Monday, right? And I'm an over the road driver. I want to be 3 weeks out in a month's time, 3 weeks out, 1 week home, or whatever they say. Because now you're determining how you're going to keep them moving and keep them running and which areas to run them in. Because if they're a 3 week out type of carrier, you don't want to send them for their type of equipment type out to an area where you're going to have a challenge getting them loads out of. You want to keep them running in areas that's going to keep them moving, make them profitable, has a high volume of inbound and outbound freight, things like that. That's your yeah. And Jennifer said you can conversate about our services and fees. Yes. So everything that we just mentioned here and before starts the conversation. It initiates the conversation, but you can kind of close the conversation also about what you charge for your services, whether it's a fee, whether it's a percentage or a flat fee, right? You can ask about any extra services you may offer. You may help them with billing. You may help them with invoicing on their end. If they have a factoring company, you may help them invoice the factoring company. You may help them with compliance. Most owner operators um, need a little bit about compliance, and compliance involves a lot of things: alcohol and drug consortium, physical DOT physicals, things like that. So, and what your conversation is your script. If you're going to be saying the same thing over and over again, irregardless of the type of carrier that you are talking to or potential carrier you're talking to, then yes, that conversation is your script because it's repetitive. So if what you say to the person or persons or different carriers is the same thing, it applies to all carriers, then yes, please, by all means, use that as your script, right? Because then you get very versed in that. You'll be able to get well versed in it, and it'll be like a conversation. It'll just be flowing. So, and that's some of the things you would say to the carrier. Now, dispatching for a carrier is not only what you say to them, but it's also what you do. So now, what are you going to do? What are you going to send them after you get off the phone? They say, "Yeah, send me your information." Well, what am I going to send? What have we been saying all this time in the trainings? What are the documents that we send? What are the contractual things that we send to the carrier? Anyone can respond on that one. What do if I'm a truck driver and you guys are my dispatchers or potential dispatcher and I want some service, some dispatch service, what are some of the things that you need to send to me that I have to fill out and return back to you? Right? I need some kind of contract. Right, the contract. So what do we call that contract? The onboarding. So the onboarding documents, Lawal. Well, I guess you can call it the onboarding documents as it relates to the dispatcher and the carrier. But when we use the term onboarding documents, we're kind of referring to you talking with the broker when you're trying to book loads for your carrier with a broker. But we refer to them as our dispatcher packet, right? Dispatcher packet. And someone just mentioned the first one, the contract, or the word that you're more familiar with is what we call the dispatcher agreement, because that is the contract. And then the other one, Jennifer just mentioned, the limited power of attorney. So the contract is the dispatcher agreement. The LPOA, I'm abbreviating because that's a lot of writing, limited power of attorney. And then the, so Jennifer said their W-9, Jennifer, is what they return to you. We're talking about right now what we send to them. So the third piece, the third document is the carrier profile. So everything that you spoke to the driver on the phone with, that conversation, asking them for that information, the carrier profile is the documented form of that, the carrier profile sheet, which contains all of those requirements, the weight limit, the equipment type, where they want to run, how often they want to run, what the rate is, how much they want to be paid for the job, things of that nature. The limited power of attorney is them giving you permission to represent them in matters of dispatching or in matters of booking the load, signing the documents, the onboarding documents from the broker on behalf of the carrier by the dispatcher. The limited power of attorney gives the dispatcher, through permission of the carrier, permission to do that. That's the purpose of the limited power of attorney. And it has to be a notarized document, okay, to make it legally binding and official. All right. So these are the three ones that you create. Again, we have templates, right? But you must call the carrier before signing, right? It would be a good idea, but if the carrier sent you a limited power of attorney notarized document giving you permission to sign those documents when you're booking loads for them, I will still call the carriers, at least letting them know, hey, I'm about to book this next load for you, and here are the details of the load. Tell me if you agree with it or not. And you'll give them, hey, it's picking up in Norfolk, Virginia, going over to Houston, Texas for a drive-in. It's 35,000 pounds. It's paying 3,800, 4,000. Are you interested in something like that? If they say they are interested in something like that and they say go ahead and book it, that is their okay to you, even though you still have the limited power of attorney already in your possession. But reviewing it with them and going over it with them just to make sure that they are on board with that load, they want that load or that shipment, is an added layer of protection for you as a dispatcher. Okay. So he or she says yes. You go back and get with the broker and says, yeah, we want that load. Go ahead and send over the when you tell a broker that you want a load that you saw on a load board for your carrier and they sent over, you're not set up with that broker. What's the first thing that they have to send for you to get your carrier set up. Your carrier, you saw a load on a load board by a broker that you reviewed it with your carrier. You and your carrier agreed that it was a good load. You called the broker, gave the broker your carrier's MC number, their authority number. The broker looked up their MC number in their system, determined that the MC number of your carrier was not in their system as an approved carrier yet. So what's the first thing that needs to be done for your carrier to be an approved carrier in the broker system? Right? This is the first process in the booking a load process. You have to send the broker proof of insurance. Not yet. So the first thing you would need to do, okay, so let's make sure we're on the same page. So let's get rid of the dispatcher packet. We know we need to design that for our carrier. This dispatcher packet the dispatcher packet is the relationship between you and the carrier you're going to be dispatching for. So this is the contract, and it gets you under the agreement with the carrier. That's the dispatcher packet, gets filled out, returned, and along with the other documents you need copies of from your carrier. So before I go into the booking and load process, let's talk about the other documents your carrier needs to send you. So carrier sends copies of blank to dispatcher. So when you send your dispatcher packet, which contains the dispatcher agreement that you created with your company information on it, the limited power of attorney, and the carrier profile, carrier receives that, fills it out, notarizes the limited power of attorney, returns it to the dispatcher. In addition to that, the carrier needs to send you documents proving that they are who they say they are, a carrier. Well, the first of which is what? They need to send you their MC authority certificate, right? That they have an MC and DOT. Because you cannot dispatch for a truck driver, a carrier, an owner operator, if they don't have the authority to move freight. Makes sense? They have to have an authority from the FMCSA saying that they are a motor carrier engaging in transporting freight for a fee. And that is governed by the FMCSA. What does the FMCSA stand for? Anybody remember what the FMCSA stand for? No. Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. So I'm gonna make sure, can you guys hear me? I want to make sure you can hear me. Am I muted?
I can hear you. I'm just
Okay.
trying to get in on the
Is it
computer.
Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration or
That's correct. That's
okay.
Correct. Yes, that's correct. I just want to make sure that you guys heard that part. Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, because they're real big on safety. So the carrier needs to send you a copy of that, copies, okay, of their authority. That's number one. They also need to send you a copy of their certificate of insurance, right? Why would you, let's ask this commonsensical question. Why would you, as a dispatcher, try to dispatch loads through a broker for your carrier to make your money for a carrier who does not have insurance to pick up any freight and transport. Would that make sense for you as a dispatcher to do that? If your carrier does not have insurance, a certificate of insurance on file, saying that they have enough insurance to cover what they have the authority to transport, if they don't have that, would it make sense for you and your dispatch company to provide the service of dispatching for them?
No, first of all, no broker is going to give them a load without the insurance.
Ding, 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 ding. Also, no broker is going to give them a load without the authority. The first one. I can't give you a load, says the broker, because you don't have the authority to even pick the load up. You're not governed by the FMCSA. You don't have the certificate, number one. And then number two, let's say by some miracle you get past that part, the non-authority part, right? You may be an exempt type of carrier. There are such things as exempt carriers. You may be an exempt carrier. Well, you still need insurance. So if you don't have number one or number two, you're definitely not getting the freight. And then lastly, you need a copy of from your carrier to make your transaction complete between you and that carrier so that you can officially be their dispatcher is a copy of their W-9. Their W-9 contains their EIN number, their employee identification number, saying that they are a business. They have a tax ID number for tax purposes, and they are an official company, whether they're an LLC, S corp, whatever they structured themselves as. I don't want to say it's irrelevant, but they structure themselves as whatever they structure themselves as, but they still have a W-9 to show you that they have an EIN number, an employer identification number, or what's called a tax ID number. So those are the three that you would need copies of, in addition to having your dispatcher packet returned to you. You need these copies to you also so that you can internalize them either digitally in your system or paper copies, hard copies in your system for your company, for your dispatch service per each carrier. And now you have an organized system. Let's say you got 3, 5 carriers. Each carrier is going to have that. Right. You can't drive a car without insurance. You can't drive a car without a driver's license or insurance. Right. So, um, and driving is a privilege, not a right. I don't know if you guys know that. There's a difference between a right and a privilege. But you still have to have insurance, not only for you, but to protect those around you, society. Same thing with the truckers. They have to have insurance because the insurance states that it has to be for the cargo. You have to insure the cargo and you have to insure the people or the property, which is liability. Okay. So that liability is called BIPD. Bodily, that's an acronym, bodily injury property damage. Okay. Cargo at a minimum 100,000, 100K, and liability at a minimum 1 million, because it protects in the case of property damage. You may hit something, or your driver may hit something or get hit, or bodily injury, hit someone either non-fatally or fatally. So, and then the cargo protects what's on the trailer from damage. That's how the insurance process is with the carrier. So you want to make sure before you make any moves to try to get a load for your carrier that all systems are in place. Everything is in place here before you move on to a load board, going to your carrier profile that he returned to you or she returned to you and trying to find a load. You want to make sure all this is in place first. Internally in your system, either a hard copy form or digitally, electronically. You may have DocuSign or what have you. However it is, as long as you got copies of it, then you're good. Okay. So are we on the same page there as far as what we need when we get a carrier, what we need to send them and what we need for them to return to us? Right? We're on the same page there. All right. So now let's go find a load, right? We'll find a load now. And what's the process in booking a load with the person that we are finding the load for and the person who posted the load? So the first thing we would do after you get all that back is you would refer to your carrier profile because it is that document that the carrier gave you their requirements or what they're looking for, right? So the carrier profile, okay, they have a dry van, no more than 40,000 pounds on the dry van. I'm OTR. Certain regions, I want at least 250 a mile. These are the requirements that I look for, right? I don't want to get specific and say I want to only haul certain types of commodities. We'll say anything general freight, right? They'll haul. Um, keep me in the Midwest, Southeast, and Southwest for the dry van, those regions. So each region contains a certain number of states. So you're gonna touch, and those are good regions because they have a high volume of inbound and outbound freight. So you're good on that. Over the road, I want to be 3 out and 1 in. What do I mean by that? 3 weeks out, 1 week home. They may put that on. They may put it like that, 3/1. Uh, but they'll tell you in a month's time, I want to be 3/3/1, 1 home and 3 out. So I should have put. Matter of fact, this is what they literally will put on there. I remember a guy did it to me. 3 out, 1 home. That's literally what he said on my profile, which means weeks. 3 weeks out, 1 week home, because he want to reset and stuff like that. So now you get all of this, and then you go to some software that, as a new dispatcher, you go to software that you look up and try to find loads for your carrier under. So where are we going to look? What software are we going to use to try to find loads for our carrier? What software? What's it called? What's the name? It begins with an L.
A load board.
A load board. So and there are different ones out there. People are putting in the chat different load board names, which is cool. 123 load board, DAT, truck stop, things like that. But the main point is you go, and this is for new dispatchers. At some point, when you get versed and experience, you'll go directly to those brokers whom you've built relationships with, over time. But right now, you'll go to the load boards, either the ones we have in our portal or some ones you may have access to, either public or private. And so the difference between what's the difference between a public and a private load board? You may ask. Private load boards are where public load boards, anyone can log into them and just grab a load and then try to book the load with the broker that posted that load, right? That's a public load board. Private load boards are owned by like either large carriers or large brokerages, and they are only accessible by those carriers who are already set up with those large carriers or large brokerages. Their MC is already in their system, like the TQLs, the CH Robinsons, the Coyotes. Uh, these are large companies that have their own private load boards where all of their carriers that are already onboarded with this brokerage can access those loads. But those loads are only coming, those TQL, CH Robinson, and Coyote loads are only from TQL, CH Robinson, and Coyote customers. They're not from all customers all over the place. They're only customers that Coyote, TQL, and CH Robinson, or whoever they may be, have agreements with. So I'm a large, let's say I'm TQL, I have 10 shippers, and I have a private load board of only the loads of those 10 shippers. I don't have a public load board of all loads of any from any brokers or any customers. I only have my specific customers on my private load board. That's the difference. So it's a micro or a smaller version of the public one. And it's only accessible by those carriers who are under their uh that are carriers under their brokerage, under their authority, or set up with them. They're already been set up. They've already done the process of setting up with a broker. So now, what's the process of setting up with a broker? Now, this leads to the last question I had asked before I had to get to this part. But when you find a load on a load board, whether it's a public load, well, if it's a private load board, you wouldn't have to do, if you find a load on a private load board, you wouldn't have to do the setup process because your carrier is already a carrier approved by that brokerage. Does that make sense? They're already set up with them. So you wouldn't have to go through the process. You would just simply see the details of the load and book the load with that, book the load on the private load board with that brokerage. But if it's a public load board and you see a load on the load board and you like the load, the first thing you do is what? Whoops, grab the wrong one. The first thing you do is call carrier. You got to be as transparent and communicative as possible. You definitely want to share the information and details of the load with your carrier prior to attempting to book that load, because you don't know what situation your carrier may be in. He may be or she may be already under a load, waiting to deliver, and it may cross over with time frames with the load that you're looking at. He may be under a load that delivers on Tuesday. He won't be empty till Tuesday, but this load that you find on the load board picks up on Monday or picks up on Sunday night at 10 p.m. So that's almost impossible to work, you see. So you call your carrier, share with them the details of the load. Number one, see if they're interested in it. They like the load. Find out what their numbers are. You're going to share with them if the load has a posted rate. In other words, if the broker put a rate that they're paying to the truck on the load board, then share that with the carrier and see if they agree to it or if they want more. Try to negotiate more. If it does not, if the broker did not post the rate on the load board for the load, then ask your carrier, what are they looking for in that load? Well, you pretty much know because remember on the carrier profile, they said for every load they wanted what, like $2.50 a mile. I think we said in this example, $2.50 a mile. So you just simply, when you see loads on a load board that don't have a posted rate, check the mileage of that load. How many miles is that load going from pickup to destination? And then multiply that times 250, and that gives you the number that the carrier, at least the starting point of what they're looking for. Okay. But let's say this had a posted rate and it was a good load and the carrier wanted it. Okay. He says, go ahead and book that load. See if you can get some money out of it. Work your dispatch percentage in that and get paid from the broker side. Right? Don't you have to factor in the fuel and other expenses? So, great question, Lawal. Some loads are all-in loads. Some loads are what's called line haul. And I'm going to put this down here. You have line haul rates. And you have what's called all-in rates. All-in rates. Okay. So a line haul rate is just from pickup to delivery. The all-in rate is that pickup to delivery plus any fuel surcharges that's included in that as well. That's the all-in rate. So when you're talking to the broker, if it's unclear on the posted load that the broker says this is a line haul or it's an all-in rate, most cases it's going to be a line haul rate. If it's an all-in rate, they'll usually say and tell you that it's an all-in rate and this is what the fuel surcharge is. But if you're confused either way, just simply ask the broker when you call and talk to them after you've had the conversation with your carrier and your carrier was interested in the load. You call the broker and say, "Hey man, is this line haul or all in?" That's basically how you ask it. Is this line haul or all in? And if you have to explain to a broker what that means, then number one, you have an advantage because they should already know, right? But they'll tell you though if it's line haul or all in. They should tell you. They'll say it's just line haul. And then you have to explain to them what do you mean? Well, is this rate that you posted, is this to the truck from the time they pick it up from the shipper to the time they deliver it to the receiver? And they'll say, "Oh yeah, that's it. That's what it is." So that means it's line haul. Is there any added fuel surcharge to help mitigate the cost of fuel? No, we don't do that. So it's line haul, it's not all in. That's the difference. Okay. If that's not on the details of the posting of the load and you are curious, you and your carrier are curious about that, then yes, um, bring that up to the broker. And that's a good thing because you will learn that if you do that repetitively, then you're going to learn how to better negotiate and how to better talk to the brokers and to prove to them that you know what you're doing. Okay. So call the carrier, give them the details of the load, see if they want the load, and then commits to doing the next step because you still have to factor in your your percentage. Remember? Now we didn't decide a percentage in this example, but let's just say 8%. That's our dispatch fee. Okay. Yes, Lawal, this is a question you need to ask the carrier when you are getting yes. So, um, so next you would say, okay, factor in your percentage. So let's say the posted rate in this example was a $3,000, right?
So, Charles, quick question. Maybe I didn't come across correctly. So, what I meant by the last question was, so on your initial discussion with your carrier, and you're trying to determine the rate, the expected rate of the carrier, is this the kind of discussion you need to have about line haul or all-in rate as expectations?
This is so when you have the initial conversation with your carrier and on the carrier profile, they'll tell you what their expected cents per mile is. They'll say, well, every load I want at least $2.50 a mile. They're referring to line haul initially. Now, if they get a broker that adds a fuel surcharge on top of that, that will add more money to their cents per mile average because it's going to help mitigate the cost of fuel. But the initial number that they give you on the carrier profile, the whatever that number is, $2.50 a mile or whatever, that is always going to be a line haul number.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. So next you factor in your percentage. When you're getting ready to give now you're doing this in the background before you even call the broker and have the conversation because you want to know what that number is. So you factor in your 8% in this example. And this example, we had a $3,000 load. So 8% of 3,000 is what? What is that? $240, right? 8 times 3 is 24. I think my math is right. Yeah, so now you see the load on the load board, and you can even think in your mind, man, you say, okay, my carrier wants this load, so it's $3,000. I'm trying to get 8% on top of that to cover my dispatch fee because I'm not trying to pull 240 from the 3,000 out of the carrier's pocket, I'm trying to put 240 on top of the 3,000 on the broker side, right? To add to it. So when I negotiate up, so that gives me what? 3240, right? So this is a threshold type of number, right? So when you call the broker, you want to give them a number a little bit above that threshold to try to compensate for your percentage. Now, there's going to be cases where brokers are going to be firm on their rate. They're not going to budge. When that happens, you just simply ask the carrier, do they still want the load? And if they say yes, well, I still have to get paid as a dispatcher. So my percentage, and most carriers know your percentage is going to come out of the 3,000. If the broker is firm on 3,000, they're not budging, they're non-negotiable, then 240 is going to get subtracted from the 3,000 as opposed to being added on top of it. Okay, just know that. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. Okay. So let's say you called the broker and you gave them a number. So 3240 is the threshold. Threshold means your percentage plus the amount that's going to the truck, to the carrier. Okay. So you gave them a number a little bit higher. You don't want to go too high and outbid yourself or out negotiate yourself, in other words. So I would say something like, well, you guys tell me what would be your number above the threshold. What would be that number?
3,400.
3,400. That's a decent number. I was going to say don't go no more than about 200 above, and that's a buck 60 right there. $160 above 3,240 is 3,400. So that's a decent number. Someone said 3,500. Okay, whoa. All right, greedy. Who is that? Jennifer? You can try it now. The worst they can say is no, right? So now you call the broker and you said, hey, we're looking at this load picking up at this shipper at this location, transporting to this receiver at this location on this line haul. We're interested in this load. Can you tell me a little bit more about the details of the load? You see the details of the load because it's posted on the load board, but there may be a case where the broker didn't put some information that you may need to, inform your carrier of so they can make a decision about whether or not they take the load. So you ask the broker some questions. Is it an appointment delivery? Is it first come first serve? 24-hour shipper? Are there any special instructions? Do you have any things about accessorials? Like if my carrier is sitting there longer than expected, like detention or anything like that, what is your policy on that? So you want to make sure you cover those types of bases. And let's say you got all your questions answered, right? Broker says, okay, yeah, you interested in a load? Yeah, how much? Well, we got it posted for 3,000. Is that gonna work for you? No, my carrier is empty right now. He's there at the location he just got empty and he's about 35, 40 miles from your pickup location. So he's available now, even though your shipment don't pick up until Monday, but we're empty right now. He wants to do it for 34. Can you do 34? Or even 35? Like you say 35 because like Jennifer said, you go a little higher and then let them come down and meet you at the point of close to your threshold. So you say he wants to do 34.50 or 35. Can you do that? The broker says, no, we can't do 34.50 or 34. Can you do 33.50? Well, he said 33.50. Is that a good number in relation to your threshold? Yes, because it's above your threshold. It is a $110 difference between 32.40 and 33.50. And who gets that 110 extra dollars, by the way? Who gets that money? Of course, the carrier does. It goes to the carrier, right? You get your 240, they get the extra, they get 3,000 plus the extra 110, so they're getting what they deserve, right? So now everything works out. So the broker says, okay, we'll do 33.50. You tell your carrier everything's good. So now the broker says, okay, what's your MC? What's your MC number? You give them the MC, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not in their system as an approved carrier for that brokerage, right? So as it stands right now, they can't give you the load until you become an approved carrier for that brokerage, right? Brokers just don't give loads to anyone. You have to go through a vetting process to get approved to receive a load and get paid by the broker. Does that make sense? That makes sense? Yes? Okay. So the broker asked for the MC. You gave it to him. It's not an approved carrier. So the broker says, okay, well, you're not an approved carrier, but no problem. Let me send you my setup packet or my onboarding packet or my carrier packet or the official name is called the broker carrier agreement. This is the first step in the booking a load for your carrier process if your carrier's MC number is not already approved by the brokerage. Okay, this is the first step. If your carrier's MC is approved by a brokerage, then this step would not be necessary. It would only be the second step. It's a two-step process: the broker carrier agreement and the rate confirmation. Okay, it's a two-step process to officially book a load from a dispatcher for their carrier through a brokerage. Okay, so if your carrier's MC is not approved by the brokerage, they have to fill out the broker carrier agreement, send those carrier documents in so that the broker now can vet the carrier. Remember those documents that says the carrier are who they say they are? The MC, the W-9, and the certificate of insurance. And that's the reason why you, the dispatcher, asks for copies of these from your carrier when you first got them, when you first set up with them to be their dispatcher. This is one of the main reasons so that you can constantly send them to brokers that they are not approved with. You see that now? It makes your job, it streamlines the process for you, makes your job a little easier. So now you fill out the broker carrier agreement and you send copies to the broker of their MC, certificate of insurance, and W-9. The broker gets those things, processes them into their TMS system or their onboarding system, whatever onboarding system they use, and then comes back and says, hey, your carrier is now an approved carrier for us. Let me send you our rate confirmation. Sometimes it's called a load confirmation. Also, load con or rate con. The most common name is the rate con. Okay. But they'll send that back to you. And this is the document that you, the dispatcher, especially if you have a signed, notarized, limited power of attorney from your carrier as their dispatcher, you can sign this rate confirmation. Of course, you're going to review it first before you sign it. Review it with your carrier. Make sure everything matches up. The numbers are good. All the special instructions and things like that on the rate confirmation make sense. And then you sign it and send it back to the broker. Once the broker, however they receives the rate confirmation, the load is officially booked. Okay? The load is booked. And then that's the process. And now your carrier, you're going to get a copy of it. Your carrier is going to get a copy of it with the pickup location, all the details of the load, the delivery location, the point of contact, phone number, email, name on the pickup side, as well as the delivery side, because you need all that detailed information in case carrier gets lost, or they can't contact the broker. They need to contact the shipper or the receiver so they can understand things. So yeah, cover yourself. CYA. Any questions about that process? Any confusion about that process? We all good? Okay, Mr. Lawal. What is that? The broker carrier agreement? You have a question about that?
Does that entail those three documents listed here, the MC, COI, and W-9?
Yeah, so when you give the broker, let's say you found a load on a load board by a broker that you're interested in, you reviewed it with the carrier, and you guys want to go ahead and go through and book it, call the broker, give the broker your MC or your carrier's MC. It's not in the broker's system. So the broker's going to send you the broker carrier agreement. That's their contract for you or your carrier to fill out and send back to them to get set up. In addition to that, you're going to send back copies of the MC, COI, and W-9. The broker carrier agreement is just the contract. Let me show you what one looks like. Between you and or your carrier and the broker. And this is a sample of what one looks like. This is only sent out by a broker to you, the dispatcher, or your carrier, if that MC number is not an MC number as an approved carrier in that brokerage. Then they need to get you under their contract. You know, what are their responsibilities? What's the carrier's responsibilities? Any insurance things, damages, claims, everything that's in a standardized broker carrier agreement. You know, no back solicitations, disputes, all types of stuff. Just some common stuff. This is a common one. Oh, not, oh, I should say common, but standardized one, you know, and it'll come with the broker's information already pre-signed back here. And then the carrier's information would have to be signed who they are. And if you have a limited power of attorney, you'll have that authority to do that on their behalf. But yeah, that's the broker carrier agreement, the contract that at least gets your carrier's MC into their system as an approved carrier. Now, this gets returned to the broker along with a copy of your carrier's MC number saying that they have an MC or MC certificate. Because if I'm a broker, I need to see that you have a document from the FMCSA saying that you can transport freight. If I'm a broker, I need to see a document from whatever insurance company you have saying that you have the right coverage on the policy. And if you are a carrier and I'm a broker, I need to see a document from the IRS, a W-9 saying that you have a business for tax purposes, an EIN number, along with this agreement in order to vet you properly and approve you before I send you a rate confirmation or a load confirmation for that specific load that you and I had that conversation prior to me sending you those other documents. Okay? You got that, Mr. Lawal? You understand that right there?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? And this, you guys are gonna get used to this because this is gonna be a repetitive process when you book a load. When you start booking loads for your carriers, once you get a carrier, you start finding loads on the load board, having those conversations with the brokers. And it's not as serious as you may think. It's a general contract. I'm a broker, I'm a regular person. I'm a broker. I got a job to do. I got to move my shippers or my customers' freight. And I'm using motor carriers, in this case, your carrier, because you're dispatching for them as a possible capacity or a possible carrier to move my customer's freight. So, yep. And that's how and it's just it does over and over again. So you may have one, two, three carriers, and you may deal with one, two, three, four, five brokers over and over again, moving loads for them. It gets to a point where they're going to start emailing you. You may not even have to look on a load board because you're going to be in their system in their email system. They're going to email you like daily or weekly. Hey man, is your truck going to be in this area next week? I got some loads that he did a pretty good job running those loads last time, and he's already set up with us now. Let's go ahead and try to get him some more loads. We just seen some more rate confirmations now because once you get set up with a carrier or with a broker, I should say, um, once you do this, in other words, you should only do this one time per broker. You only need to get set up with a brokerage one time. In other words, the broker carrier agreement. You don't have to do a broker carrier agreement for every load you find for that same broker. Okay. You only have to do this one time per broker. Now, what you have to do multiple times per broker per each load is a rate confirmation because each load is different. You may have one brokerage like a TQL, CH Robinson, or whatever, but you may be doing 5 or 6 different loads. So you're going to need 5 or 6 different rate confirmations because they're different loads. They're different shipments, right? Albeit under the same brokerage, there's different shipments, they're different loads. So understand the difference. You only need to do the contract between your carrier and that broker once, but you need to do this for as many loads you have under that broker, right? Hopefully I'm getting that across correctly to you guys, right? So set up with each broker one time. So you may have 3 brokers. So if you got 3 brokers you're trying to get your carrier set up with, you're going to need 3 different broker carrier agreements. And on point, you said that's where you want to be, where you don't have to search for loads because you've developed a rapport or a relationship with a brokerage and they are sending you loads. That's correct. They'll put you on their load list, right? Because you fall within the category of the type of equipment they need and the capacity that they have a requirement for, and the type of commodity that they want carried, and the lane that you run in, and the fact that you've done loads with them before successfully with OTP and OTD, on time pickup, on time delivery. That's what OTP means. OTP and OTD. If you got a carrier that does OTP very well and OTD very well, on time pickup, on time delivery, then they will be, for obvious reasons, at the top of brokers' lists because brokers are trying to satisfy their customers, and if they can find the best carriers to do that, your carrier, and you can indirectly help your carrier by doing, helping them with OTP and OTD on time by providing as much detailed information from that broker as possible and keeping the lines of communication open so that all parties are very aware of what's going on and what needs to be done. So it all kind of ties in directly. All right. Any questions? Good. Okay. All right. If there are no questions, I'll give y'all a short day today. Call the carrier after he has been driving for 10 hours. Right. You can. So, Jennifer, what you're referring to is hours of service. So carriers can be on duty 14 hours, and then 11 of those 14 they can be driving, either straight or particularly straight. So yeah. Okay. To make sure, yeah, you want to check and make sure they're resting. Now, the person who needs to check and make sure they're resting the most is the carrier themselves. But yes, if you could provide that added service of being there for the carrier and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do, then of course that'll be even better. That's an added service. That's what we call a value add. Yeah, they think you care. Well, I would imagine you do. You know, I would hope, yeah, that you do care, right? Because you're trying to keep them, updated. And you want to keep their business and you want to stay in business with them. So I agree. So you guys' challenge is getting the carriers at this point, right? Hopefully the process is being explained to you. But even once you get a carrier and you need to come back and review the process, of course, you have me, you have the recordings, and we always review all the time so we get this down to a science, and it'll be smooth sailing from there. So, all right. All right, guys. If there's not any more questions, thank you for your time. The class in January, there is that class in January about cold calling carriers. Yeah, I'm not sure what I would have to get with Chasa and see what when did she schedule it, because I'm not sure. She does the cold calling, so I gotta get with her, and I think she posts it on the Facebook private groups, our Facebook Dispatcher 101 and our chats and stuff like that. But I have to get with her and see if she's chosen a date or not. So, okay. All right, guys. Thank you for your time and have a great weekend.